We need the Canadian government to fight on our behalf. It's not going to happen here in Ottawa. It's going to happen in Washington. We need a timetable. We need to start to work together. Is this a 2 to 3 month plan? Is this a 6-month plan? Is this a 1-year plan? My answer would be different for each one of those scenarios. Because you have to admit and come up with the reality that what you're asking of us is to stand to the front line of a trade war with the United States, and we are the front line. As we prepare for this, we are preparing for the risk of our businesses. We're playing and gambling with the future of our employees, and we don't know really how long this is going to go. So you ask for what my answer is for what support. I ask you, tell us what the plan is, because you're asking us to toe the line right now, and we really don't know how long it's going to be. If you tell me it's July, we'll probably be okay. If you tell me it's going to go much longer than that, then we need to come up with some serious measures to be able to support these companies, because right now Canada and the United States, for all the reasons I put down, are the two ugly sisters. And what's leaving is never coming back. So I ask the question, how long do you want us to hold the line?
On April 6th, a modification was made by President Trump to the 232 tariffs, and it has hit the mold, tool, and die industry hard. Today, those Canadian manufacturer and company owners showed up at committee with one goal: push Mark Carney and the Liberals to get a deal done with the United States before more damage is done, because time is running out. But when Liberal MPs leaned on familiar talking points and subsidies and diversifying to Europe, industry leaders pushed back hard. Their message was blunt. This isn't something that you can patch over. The supply chain is fully integrated, and if tool, die, and mold making goes down, it takes manufacturing and the rest of the Canadian economy with it. Let's take a look. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is a release that came out on April 7th. So it says, on April 2nd, 2026, President Trump issued a presidential proclamation modifying the application of the Section 232 tariffs on steel and steel derivative products, aluminum and aluminum derivative products, and semi-finished copper products and copper-intensive derivative products. Now, basically, there's a lot to this, and it doesn't just affect Canadian products, but one of the most important pieces is right down here at the bottom. Tariffs now apply to the full customs value. All tariffs imposed on products under the steel, aluminum, and copper Section 232 actions will now apply to the full customs value of the imported product, including derivative products. The previous system, in which the tariffs on derivative products were calculated by splitting the customs value between steel, aluminum, copper, and non-metal content, has been eliminated. What does this mean? Well, imagine you're a company and you have a product that you're selling for $1,000. And the amount of steel that is in that product, which is the only piece that you're going to be paying a tariff on, was around $100. So before April, you would be paying, let's say, a 10% tariff on that $100. So you'd be paying $10. Okay, fine. But that doesn't apply anymore. Now you're paying up to 50% of the full customs value on that product. So now, instead of paying $10 for that product in tariffs, you could be paying upwards of $500, depending on what is in that product. This is a problem because many manufacturing companies and many tool companies, they don't have high margins. It's not like they're making 50% profit on a product. When all is said and done, they're making between 1 and 9%, and 9 is pushing it. So they can't absorb this type of tariff. And here's the issue. Most of the mold industry, where they're actually creating molds for other products to actually go into, for plastics and things like that, and this is very integral to the auto industry, it's all made in Canada. Like almost 80% of it is in the Windsor area. Never mind the rest of the tooling manufacturers. This is a big deal because what will end up happening is that as soon as American companies stop using these Canadian companies, all of their business will go to Mexico. And these committee or these business leaders came to Ottawa today for an emergency meeting in order to essentially slam their fists on the desk to try to get this government to actually do something. Now, we were expecting some interesting answers to conservative questions, but it was the responses to the liberal questions that actually sent a chill down our spine.
What's the immediate impact if we don't get a resolution to the tariffs on industry? And I don't even want to talk about regionally, I'm talking about Canadian industry. What's the immediate impact? How quickly are companies going to close? How many jobs we're going to lose? What's the fear factor on that front, sir?
It's a twofold question. The first impact is what we're feeling immediately, which is any product that we have on our shop floor that we would have already received contracts for, it's not quoted or nor does it have any provisions for this 10%. We're hoping that it's 10%. It could be 15%, and because of the ambiguity, it might be 50%. There's no industry in Canada that could sustain that type of that hit to the bottom line. Most manufacturers operate at single-digit net profits, so anything greater than 5% is going to make them unprofitable. If they're in a position to be able to look at sourcing in the United States, they'll explore that. The small to medium-sized businesses will not. They will just close. At the end of this, you will likely see that an industry will shrink or leave Canada quite quickly because there's really no incentive at that point to stay in Canada.
You had mentioned in your opening remarks about potential support programs. Are those support programs for 3 months? Are they for 6 months? Are they for a year? I'm just wondering, how do we save industry today so we don't lose it? Because I believe that once industry is gone, it's gone for good. It's gone forever. Can you please expand on the comments that you had made earlier on in your initial remarks?
MP Lewis, you're absolutely right. When industry leaves, it doesn't come back. We've already seen that in the automotive industry. Once these plants close, they very rarely reopen. So the idea that you're going to be able to, change the minds of these companies once they move, that's likely not going to happen because it's too expensive for us to move industry, especially what we do, which is very highly technical, specialized machines. I tell most people that the machines in my shop, one machine costs more than the entire plant and building and land that it sits on. That's not easy to move around. So once it leaves, it's gone. To answer the rest of your question, I don't necessarily think that there's a good opportunity for us to try and save this business if we are looking at something longer than 2 or 3 months. You have to understand that this is an aging industry, right? Most of our owners are 65 years old. They're not going to stick around to try and fight this and go around again, right? Most of them will look at either closing their companies or moving them or trying to sell them, right? And the problem is immediately overnight, the multiples for these companies were cut in half, if not greater, because they are no longer profitable. Nobody's going to buy a business that's not profitable now. It will just close, right? Or relocate.
So these guys are talking about the collapse of the tool, mold, and die industry in Canada. And 25%, 1/4 of the entire industry in North America is in Canada. So what does that mean? Well, that means over 58,000 jobs are gone, just like that. But that's just the beginning. Because these companies, they brand themselves as the companies that make things so you can make things, right? They're creating the molds, they're creating the tools, they're creating the supplies that everybody else uses when they're manufacturing. So if these companies go down, the Canadian companies that they're feeding, they will also go down. So you're not just talking about 58,000 jobs right now. You are now talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs in the manufacturing sector across Canada. This is the most important story right now in Canada. And Mark Carney would like to talk about his plagiarized financial policy. Well, if you want to update Canadians, maybe you should start with why your butt is not down in Washington trying to get a deal done and why it hasn't been there for months.
What are your sales in Canada and the United States?
We could make a valid argument to say that over 90% is either directly or indirectly will land in the United States. What I mean by that is that even if I'm shipping product to Mexico or if I'm shipping it to Canada, it will likely have a final destination of the United States. So we could easily say 90. Sales by volume, I'd probably say that it's probably 80% is US. The other 20% is Canadian.
And what, Mr. Azzopardi, what are your American customers saying about what happened and the kinds of decisions they're now faced with?
It's a complicated question, MP. I will say that I've taken it upon myself to call every one of my clients every month since the tariffs have started to make sure that we're staying in contact, not only what's being said on that side of the border, but to understand what's really being said behind closed doors. And our clients do not want to not do business with Canada, right? They want to do business with Canada. But it's being more increasingly difficult to do business in the uncertainty of the environment we're in. The uncertainty is as bad as the tariffs. Now the uncertainty has been backed up by tariffs that make it unfeasible to do business with Canada. What we have seen is that even the CEOs and presidents of these corporations in the United States, they're drinking the Kool-Aid and they're admitting that the Kool-Aid is poison, if that makes sense, right? They're doing it out of, they have no choice. And they're actually doing something that's far worse, is that they're not even putting that work in the United States. That work is actually not going to Canada, it's not going to the United States, and I've given 6 reasons why that is, so in my briefing you can see it. Most of it is going to Mexico now. And once it's sourced to Mexico, it's not coming back to the United States and it's not coming back to Canada.
You mentioned the 130 employees, team members. What are you saying to them in this moment, and what are they saying to you?
We've been through this before, not to this magnitude. We are going to continue to diversify our customer base and find ways to mitigate this as much as we can, but we can only do so much. We have proposals and mitigation tactics that will buy us between 3 and 6 months, but if this remains unchanged in the next 12 months, we will be staring at the bill of about $5 million in tariffs that will be going to the United States, and we only make about $2.5 million.
Ladies and gentlemen, the financial and banker genius that's going to save our economy, Mark Carney. These companies have between 3 and 6 months. That's it. The clock is ticking on the mold, tool, and die industry. Meanwhile, Mark Carney is spending $524,000 on catering and having a grand old time. He's been in Europe. He's been in China. He's been in India. You know where he hasn't been? The United States of America, where our country is completely intertwined with their economy.
What kind of supports, in addition to the resolution of the trade issue itself, are you looking for, both from the company and the sectoral perspective?
I mean, besides what my colleague already said, I'm going to take it from a different, higher level. I'm going to answer on behalf of my industry and say that we understand that our role is going to be one of a sacrificial lamb, a meat shield for this government and this country in the short term and long term. But you need to grant us the grace and the respect to tell us, what is the plan? Is this a 2 to 3 month plan? Is this a 6 month plan? Is this a 1 year plan? My answer would be different for each one of those scenarios, because you have to admit and come up with the reality that what you're asking of us is to stand to the front line of a trade war with the United States, and we are the front line. As we prepare for this, we are preparing for the risk of our businesses. We're playing and gambling with the future of our employees, and we don't know really how long this is going to go. So you ask for what my answer is for what support. I ask you, tell us what the plan is. Because you're asking us to toe the line right now, and we really don't know how long it's going to be. If you tell me it's July, we'll probably be okay. If you tell me it's going to go much longer than that, then we need to come up with some serious measures to be able to support these companies, because right now Canada and the United States, for all the reasons I put down, are the two ugly sisters. And what's leaving is never coming back. So I ask the question, how long do you want us to hold the line?
This is the first of a couple powerful moments in this committee. What supports do you need in order to continue to keep your business viable? And the look and the tone of the witness is... it's devastating. Not devastating just in terms of how potent the testimony is, but it's devastating because you can see it on his face. This is the last shot for not only his company, but all of his peers as well. It's like, fine, you want us to keep getting punched in the face because that's what's going on? You tell us what your plan is. You want us to toe the line, the elbows up, resist Donald Trump, diversify your economy. That's great. Taking a page out of the Liberals' campaign playbook, slogans don't equal solutions. And right now you have provided no plan and no solution to one of the most important industries in Canada. It's one of the least talked about in terms of the national conversation, but it's one of the most important, and we're seeing how just important it is right now. I cannot overstate how important this is, folks, and this is why these folks here are very somber, and they are extremely serious when they're answering these questions, and they're not overstating it. The problem is the answer to the question that the witness asked wasn't answered because there is no answer. Mark Carney has no plan. And that's the biggest problem and the most frightening thing about this.
We all want a strong, advanced manufacturing sector. I'm a member of Parliament for Guelph. We are a hub of advanced manufacturing. And we all want a trade deal with the Americans, right? So I just would like to know, with respect to steel and aluminum, there is already a large enterprise tariff loan facility that is available. And would that be suitable for the short term in order to create a bridge until we have some more certainty? So I'm curious whether that or the Strategic Response Fund is able to respond, and if you're having those conversations with the minister.
I think I'm probably best to answer that question. Yes, we have already accessed the Strategic Relief Fund, and we are using it. And I can tell you how we're using it, which is to increase our competitiveness to try and take some of that work back that we've lost to the EU. But it's not really getting anything back from the United States. And I'll tell you why that is. Because the tariff is now the problem, not our competitiveness, not our efficiencies, right? Now the burden is upon our clients, right? So our burden is, as soon as they buy a mold from us, they're either going to pay the 10% tariff or we're going to absorb it, right? So we're trying to be more competitive in a world it's nothing to do with competitiveness at this point. It's not going to solve the problem. Will it allow us to push the problem down the road a little bit? Maybe once we get this behind us. But right now the major problem is that clients are asking us every day to not only match the price but beat the price. And now we have this 10% or 15% tariff on top of us. And one thing that we haven't talked about during this meeting is that you have to understand, for us to get to the 10% tariff, we have to buy U.S. steel. U.S. steel comes at a premium because of all the bad decisions that our American friends have made, but we also get penalized for bringing in that U.S. steel. This government ignores the fact that that continues to put us at a disadvantage. It's punitive. It's not counter tariff, it's punitive tariffs. It only continues to erode our position in trying to be in a competitive world. Buying new machines and making our plant beautiful, we're doing that. But at some point, we have to deal with the fact that if we're not profitable, we're not profitable. And those decisions are coming down sooner and quicker. I honestly think the decision here is that we need to start to dive into the problem. There are solutions. We need the Canadian government to fight on our behalf. It's not going to happen here in Ottawa. It's going to happen in Washington. We need a timetable. We need to start to work together. And I'm going to be honest with you, we are already looking at hiring consultants ourselves because we don't think we're getting anywhere.
Well answered. Yeah, we're using the quote-unquote bailout money, and it's not going to be helping us in the way that we need it to. We can't move the needle because of these tariffs. And we're getting counter-tariffed because they have to buy the U.S. steel coming back the other way. So the Canadian government is tariffing these businesses. So they're having to pay the Canadian government the tariff fees for the stuff coming into the country because, again, Mark Carney doesn't seem to understand how the North American supply chain works because it goes back and forth many, 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 many times. And he's saying, listen, how does it make sense that we're paying the Canadian government these tariffs and then we're having to go back to the Canadian government to get this relief fund? It's insanity. And so the customers don't like paying the tariffs, so guess what? The Canadian companies, they're having to eat it. And this is the problem. They can't lower the price anymore because they're now in the red. This is the whole point, and this is why they're in Ottawa.
How critical is a long-term trade agreement to the survival of the mold-making industry?
We won't be around without it.
Okay. And Mr. Jellaby, I have the same question for you. How critical is a long-term trade agreement to the survival of the industry?
Same answer. The industry will not survive without it. No question.
Mr. Van der Park, we've heard that tariffs can reach up to 50% on full product value. How does that affect your ability to quote competitively? And are you seeing customers willing to pay the upcharge?
Kind of a loaded question. Right now, we have not changed our quotes. We have not raised our price. Our quote is still the same number. We submit a quote based on our number. The problem is when we go to ship. So last August 18th, when the first steel tariff went into place, our price went up 50% on steel. Then on August 6th, when the latest was implemented, April 6th, now when we moved to buy U.S. steel, now we're tariffed on top of the U.S. steel that we paid a premium for. We're double dipped, if not triple dipped, and now we're going back to our customers and saying, okay, we need 15% more. It's not realistic. It's not a long-term plan. It's very short. It's a conversation that Diane and myself and my ownership have every single day with our customers. We talk about the dollars and cents and being, how long can you survive having to pay that, or how long will you have a customer for?
I'd like to really break this down for committee. So I understand that you had one tool with about 1,500 man hours in it that you were going to sell for $244,000 roughly, and you were going to pay tariffs of 1,500 Canadian or US dollars, on this tool. And subsequent to the Section 232 tariffs that came down, it's now around $36,000 on one tool. Is that a fair statement, sir?
That is an exact statement.
Okay, thank you. So then my next question is that reality today? Because this is maybe a couple weeks old. Is there something new you'd like to share with committee?
Sure, that was the first one. If we would have shipped that tool on the Friday, Good Friday, or the Thursday before, it would have been $1,500 and no conversation. The Monday, the tool is still sitting on our floor. Today, it has not shipped. But since then, obviously, we have other projects. And I have a full-time tariff girl now, which we didn't have before, and she sent me 4 tools that our customer asked to ship this week that we negotiated last May, that we said we would absorb all tariffs. This is how we got this, based on what the rules were in May. We expected, based on the steel tariff that went in August 18th, there would be a $25,375 tariff on these 4 tools. That tariff leaving today, if we were to ship them, is now $130,347.
Everybody understand now? These companies are making these super expensive tools. And they quoted companies a year ago, because this is how long it actually takes to actually build the tool. Now they're faced with these new tariffs that Mark Carney has refused to talk to the United States on. Who cares? Remember that? Now they're in a position where they can't afford to actually send the tool to the customer to get paid. Because they already made a commitment to the customer when the order was placed, we'll absorb the tariffs, because the tariffs were absorbable at that point. But now, how are you going to absorb over $150,000 of tariffs? So rather than ship it, it sits on the floor. So you've invested all of that time and material into making that tool, and you can't sell it. This is what these companies are dealing with, and this is the first large crack in the Canadian economy that's about to break off. And within years, cause a catastrophic collapse. But, diversify the economy, Mr. Carney.
Can you quantify the direct financial impact these tariff changes have had on your operations, and whether in terms of input costs, lost contracts, or margin compression?
The immediate impact right now, we don't have it because it just came out. We have work in progress. We have to finish our contracts. We have to build the tools we have. What we're afraid of, I don't know what's behind it. Our salespeople right now, they call me every day, Chris, what are we doing? What's next? What are we telling our customers? How do we quote a job? Right? So the immediate impact, we have work. We don't want to lay the people off, but we have 3 months worth of work or 4 months worth of work behind that. We don't know.
And this is the message from all of these folks. And there's a lot more testimony. I encourage everybody to watch the whole thing. But they're asking, what's the plan? Why are you not in Washington? One of the first witnesses has said, you guys aren't doing anything, so we're hiring our own consultants to go down and do your work for you. Where's the leadership, Mark Carney? And he's trying to tell everybody that businesses are clamoring to invest in Canada. What? That doesn't make any sense at all. The only reason why companies want to invest in Canada, or should want to invest in Canada, is A, stability with regulation, and B, proximity to one of the world's most lucrative markets, the United States of freaking America. When we have a prime minister that has no interest in making that actually a profitable venture, hello? How do you expect any businesses to have interest coming into Canada when you're making no effort to resolve the trade issue with the United States? To be clear, this isn't all on Mark Carney. There's a lot of blame to go for Donald Trump right now for making this policy increase. But it's not all on him. Takes two to tango. And Mark Carney hasn't been interested in dancing. He's been more interested in taking planes around the world and trying to tell everybody, don't worry, affordability is great. Meanwhile, we have a whole industry that's about to collapse. And if that industry goes down, all of the Canadian companies that use all of the products that are made by that industry, they go down next. This would be catastrophic for Canadians' manufacturing economy, which comes out to about 2.1 million Canadians that are employed by it. Can you imagine how that would look on the StatsCan jobs report?